guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're having a look at this brand new 2024 Mercedes EQS SUV. It's built on the same platform as the sedan, but for some reason I do think the SUV proportions just look better with this overall styling. I'm not a huge fan of the EQ series because it looks so smooth and almost too bland for a Mercedes, but they went with efficiency, of course, slippery through the air, so everything sits flush with the bodywork. Overall, it's a fantastic car to drive. Even though it is an EV, it's a very fun car to drive. When we look at the proportions like this, it feels a little bit more like a minivan to me. So starting in the front end, here we can quickly go over the design. I do love these ribs that we have in the hood coming back from the SLK from 1997. We have a huge logo in the middle, of course. Small little stars in the huge grille. Behind the logo sits all the radar stuff, and this is the AMG package, meaning you do have some gloss black trim, and we also have the 21-inch AMG wheels, and this is the 450 4Matic, meaning that it is the base 450, but we still have all-wheel drive and dual motors for this car. So we can open up this, and this is of course where the rear mounted camera also pops out when you're reversing. To have a look at the storage space that we have back here, it's pretty big. If you want to, you can fold down the rear seats by just holding these buttons right here, fold backing up, fold it back again, I guess. You can have this with a 3-row setup if you want to, but it's going to be a very tight rear seats. So with that said, we can't open the hood because you can't open it, basically. You can't open this part of the car because there's a lot of cooling stuff back there. If you want to fill up the washer fluid, you do that right here. We do have the EQS logo right here, and these pop up as you get close to the car. They will pop back in and sit flush with the bodywork when you take off. You have this huge step on the side. It's very pronounced, which is surprising to me because you don't really need this to step up onto this car. But let's jump in here and have a look at the interior of the EQS. Let's start in the back seat. A couple of cool things back here. You do have 4 climate zones. You have 2 here in the back for the passengers and also 2 in the front. And if we fold down this middle section, huge portion of the center of the seat comes out, and here you have this little display. You can pop it up and take it, you just use it as a tablet, and here you can adjust, you know, the ambient lighting. If you want to change that, you can change some seat settings, the seat positioning, and so on. So it's pretty cool to have just a little tablet like this where you can adjust some basic stuff for the back seat, but I like to have it just in place right there. And if you pop this up, you have a phone charger in the back. You also have phone I would say compartments, or you can rest your phones in the front end here. So let's pop this back up and let's go check out the front seats. By the way, you also have heated seats back here, which is great news. But the big thing, of course, happens in the front end. I almost got my legs chopped off of there. So in this case, this being the 450, you can get it with the dual screen setup. So you have one screen in the middle and one for the gauge cluster. But in this case, as you can see, we do have the hyper screen, which is this huge, massive screen, 17 inches in the middle here. And you also have 12.3-inch gauge cluster and a 12.3-inch screen for the passenger, so they can do whatever they want on this screen. And inside here we have a bunch of different settings. For example, going in here, we have the same settings as I showed you in the smaller display in the back, so all the light settings and so on. We also have the massaging seats, so you have a bunch of different massage settings here for both the front passenger seats, which is fantastic. And usually I'm not a huge fan of massaging seats because they don't feel like they actually do anything, but in this case I actually think they work pretty well. So let's take this for a drive while we talk more about this interior that we have here. So 2 12.3-inch gauge clusters, screens here. I do love that we at least have a sort of little housing for the gauge cluster up here, and we have a fantastic head-up display with, if I, for example, we have augmented reality here. So if I want to go to let's see, Let's see if we can pop in Morrison here, because that's just down the street. I want to show you something really cool. Hopefully it shows us here that the augmented reality is showing. So you see these arrows that comes up in the head-up display. The further you get to the curve, the closer you get to the curve, the bigger the arrows get, and they also do that here. I think it's such a cool... Yes, I know where I'm going. Thank you, Mercedes. But it's such a cool navigation system. And now you can see right in front of you that this is obviously where you're gonna turn. And then it shows up here as well. The next curve, you just follow it like this. Very cool head-up, one of the best head-up displays I think I've ever seen. And this augmented reality, which is a $2,000 option. And by the way, this weather today is completely crazy, because just 2 days ago we had 75 degrees, and today we have what is it, 36 degrees and snowing. So that is Colorado weather for you. Just up and down. I guess summer is not here just yet, but let's cancel this navigation here because we don't need it anymore. I just wanted to show you the head-up display and the augmented reality. Now, looking at the gauge cluster here, we have a bunch of different settings for it, and you control it with the left spoke of the steering wheel. They're sort of not buttons, but you can still feel them click when you're using them. You can also swipe up and down. So here we have all the settings here. For example, we have the off-road setting for the head-up display. Hopefully you can see that. A bunch of different stats, angles that you have right there. I think it looks pretty cool. Very high resolution and crisp. That's what I love about this head-up display. But we also have different settings layouts for the gauge cluster. You can have it in classic, which I think looks really nice. We have the map in the middle, and you have two pretty traditional looking clusters. Or you can go into sport, which I also think looks very cool. This is the one I like to have. You have the drive modes here as well at these buttons here. So when you click this, the entire panel here, you feel like you're clicking the entire panel. But we do have all the drive modes here: eco, comfort, sport, and individual. And we also have an off-road mode, which is going to raise up the entire car by about an inch. And the good news about this, compared to the EQS, they're based on the same platform, but here, if you like the SUV style better, the higher ride height, you're obviously going to go with the EQS SUV, which sits at about, you can get 8.7 inches of ground clearance, which is not too bad, even though, as I said, when you look at the design of this, the proportions, it feels more like a, at least for me, it just looks more like a minivan. You have the pedals here behind the steering wheel, and these are to adjust the regen braking and the strength of it. I like to keep it in strong recuperation, because that definitely allows for one pedal driving. It's very, it almost feels like when you're lifting off the gas, like I'm gonna do right now, it almost feels like you're almost slamming on the brakes. But I like that, because that's what I want to see in regen braking, because it feels good to know that you're charging fully when you're stepping off the gas, and that's what I want to have. So 355 horsepower in this, all-wheel drive. You have rear-wheel steering up to 10 degrees of the rear wheels, which definitely helps a lot with the handling that we have. Because this car, even though it weighs around 6,000 pounds, it doesn't feel like it, and all that weight is very low down in the car, and it still has some, you know, it still feels good to step on the gas. It's not extremely quick like we might be used to with EVs these days. It doesn't have that, you know, it doesn't punch you back into your seat when you're stepping on it. But 355 horsepower and 590 pound-feet of torque for the all-wheel drive version, I think that's enough. I really think that that is sufficient for this type of vehicle. It still makes for a very I'm surprised to say this. I didn't think I would say this, but it still feels pretty fun to drive this car. Now the price for this is about 100, as this one is spec'd. I'm gonna throw up the spec sheet or the sticker here so you can see all the options that it has. But about $121,000, which is a lot for a vehicle like this. But it's also, it still has this Mercedes feel to it. It still feels solid. There's no creaks or rattles in here. And it's one of these Mercedes, I think Mercedes and Lexus, they are the top when it comes to just going into, sitting in the car, go for a drive, and you feel like you don't really want to get out of the car. You just want to keep driving. And this one is so comfortable, extremely comfortable, even in the sports setting. The miles you get with this is not the best. When you have the all-wheel drive, you're only getting 285 miles of range. If you go for the rear-wheel drive version, you're getting a little bit more, 305 miles, which I think is still not super impressive. But that, of course, has to do with the weight that we have here. I would like to see a bit of a bigger battery pack, so we can get at least 350 or something like that from an all-wheel drive version of the EQS, because it's so comfortable that it's one of these cars that you really want to go for a long road trip in. You do have fast charging, 10 to 80% in about, I think it's about 25-30 minutes or something like that. So let's go on to this gravel piece right here. You can't, oh, look at that, we have a lot of deer right in front of me, looking super surprised. They're like, what is that bean on wheels right there? That's very cool. Hopefully they all have enough to eat. I'll see you later, dear. I don't like this at all, that I need to click on the volume here. To adjust the volume. I can obviously also slide it back and forth like this. But I would just want to have a dial, simple dial, to just adjust the volume. It feels like it wouldn't be a hard thing to do, to just put it right here. But as I said, the handling of this car, of this SUV, is great. And I was also extremely surprised by the turning radius of this car. I mean, with the rear steering, it feels like it has the same turning radius as an original Mini Cooper. And then if you want to chill out and relax, you just put it into comfort mode and everything quiets down. We can even put back the original clusters here, and we can just cruise for as long as you want, and you're not gonna get tired in these seats. So overall, this EQS, the EQ series in general, the exterior design, said it before, I don't think it's Mercedes enough, but I also think that this was Mercedes' first. Here we have a classic old Mercedes, beautiful. This was Mercedes' first EV lineup. I do think they're going to change that up for the next generation EV and make it more stately in its design and less of this soft, bubbly, flush feel that we have with all the graphics sitting flush with the bodywork and really not having a clear identity. But when it comes to the driving, yes, it still feels like a proper Mercedes.